Good afternoon, everybody. I don't know when you're watching this, but when I'm recording this, it's February 1st. So the 7th edition of Reality Check newsletter came out this morning, and I just wanted to go through it with you in case you prefer to listen to me talk as opposed to reading it. So the painting, of course, is seasonal, as it always is. I try to pick something appropriate to the season. So this is The Shortening Winter's Day is Near a Close by Joseph Farquharson. He lived around the turn of the 20th century, and he was a Scottish painter. Did some other cool works as well. Here's Road to Loch Marie and Afterglow. This one's kind of low res. But yeah, landscape painter from Scotland. Pretty cool guy. Why did I choose this for February? Because sometimes, I know the solstice, like the longest day in the year, is in end of December, but sometimes it feels like January and February are like the coldest months. And so this painting kind of reminds us that spring is around the corner. We have like the warm glow of the sun there, kind of casting a nice, hopeful light over the snow. Our poem, or rather extract from a poem, comes from Roy Campbell's Autumn, which again seems like an odd choice because it's February, not autumn. Autumn's long gone. But I like the words he says about winter here. Again, it's kind of putting a more positive spin on winter. He talks about winter being sort of having this purifying or purgatorial function. So he writes, "I love to see, when leaves depart, the clear anatomy arrive. Winter, the paragon of art, that kills all forms of life and feeling, save what is pure and will survive." So yeah, kind of a positive outlook. Next, we have some kind of erotic paintings based on Goethe's ballad, Der Fischer, which means the fisher. Right. In previous newsletters, we've gone over Erlkönig, which is the Earl King, as well as Der König in Thule, which is the King in Thule, King of Thule. In this one, Der Fischer, a fisherman's kind of on the side of the ocean or a body of water. A mermaid comes up to him, and normally it's the mermaids enticing the men into the water, but in this, the mermaid actually accuses him of the reverse, enticing mermaids to come above the water where they drown. But then, of course, she kind of uses that to like get him talking, and then she lures him into the water like normal, and he succumbs. It's been adapted many times into different illustrations. The one on the left here is from Frederick Leighton, 1858, and then on the right, 1920 by Eric Schutz, which is actually not a painting, it's a illustration or drawing. Pretty cool. And the ballad, the Lieder by Franz Schubert that he adapts is actually good. Sometimes the Lieder that Schubert composes is very opera-y, and it's kind of too much, hard to listen to. I promise, this one's actually good. I listened to it like back-to-back a couple times. So, the short story for the month, I wrote a imitation of H.P. Lovecraft called The Managishi. I don't want to say too much about it. It's kind of like a thriller-style horror, kind of. Anyways, I'm still very far away from where I'd like to be writing-wise, especially in terms of fiction. And up till now, my short stories have kind of been an imitation of Flannery O'Connor. And now this one's an imitation of H.P. Lovecraft, so a bit of a different twist. This little short section here is about a poem called Pearl. It's a narrative poem from, well, I'm not sure. I think the manuscript we have is from 14th century, but when it was originally written, I'm not sure. It's the manuscript that we have has a few other poems in it, the most famous being Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, which I believe there's a TV show on called The Green Knight. Super old, like, core European text. And the message of this poem is very similar to the essay I wrote last month about God's hiddenness. So, basically the poem goes, this guy loses his infant daughter, she dies, and the man is kind of wrestling with this, well, how can God be good? Like the theodicy stuff, right? Like, how can God be good if evil like this exists? It's senseless, I can't move on. He's kind of stricken in his grief, and so, yeah, the poem says, my wretched will to woe is bound, right? He can't move on. One day, he's visiting his daughter's grave, and he falls asleep and has this big vision. He finds himself in this idyllic garden, which we later find out to be the New Jerusalem, or heaven, and he meets his deceased daughter, but she's not an infant anymore. She's kind of grown into this beautiful young lady, and he's like, hey, like, are you okay? Like, I still love you. Like, what's going on? And she's like, instead of like comforting him, she like chastises him. She's like, what are you doing? Like, be a man, grow up, move on. It's like, it's not becoming for you to just be stuck in your grief like this. Like, there's a time for grief, but it's ended. Like, you need to move on. And then she assures him that she's happy in heaven. She gives him a vision of the city, New Jerusalem, where all the other dead Christians are living. And then she challenges him to kind of, bear his burden nobly, and then he wakes up. And so the message, of course, being that it pleases God that we take up our cross despite the circumstances and kind of not complain. And that sometimes grief can be inordinate, and that you can be wallowing in it for too long. Oh, also a cool anecdote about this poem is that it's one of J.R.R. Tolkien, right, Lord of the Rings, one of his favorite poems, and he lectured extensively about it, so kind of cool. Quote of the month here, C.S. Lewis, The Weight of Glory. There are no ordinary people. You have never talked to a mere mortal. Nations, cultures, arts, civilizations, these are mortal, and their life is to ours as the life of a gnat. But it is immortals whom we joke with, work with, marry, snub, and exploit. Immortal horrors or everlasting splendors. So C.S. Lewis in this quote is kind of inverting our typical value structure, where we think that like art, culture, civilization are like super important, lofty ideals, but really they're nothing in compared to people. People are really what matter. So kind of a cool quote. Essay I wrote this month was just a kind of a summary of a alternative medical system called German New Medicine. Kind of half conspiracy theory, half interesting perspective. So yeah, I'll make a separate video on that. Word of the month. Oh, sorry, I just remembered an anecdote about our poet. So C.S. Lewis and Tolkien were part of a group called the Inklings, where they would like meet to discuss literature and stuff they're writing. And our poet, Roy Campbell, he was South African, but he spent most of his life in Europe. Of course, that's probably how he was able to write this poem, because I don't think South Africa gets much of a winner. Maybe it does, I don't know. Anyways, he attended a few Inklings meetings, so that's a cool connection. And also, he mingled with the Bloomsbury Group, which is also a really famous and influential literary circle. E.M. Forster, John Maynard Keynes, there's one more, Virginia Woolf. I think those are like the big names. Anyways, word of the month, we have peskos. It's a Norwegian word that means the feeling of well-being obtained from snuggling indoors in front of an open fire, which is also seasonal, right? You should take the long days to relax and warm up. One more painting here. I'll leave you to look at that later. Kind of ominous castle in the background. I like that. Anyways, that's it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for reading. Please subscribe. See you later.